Hey everybody, it's Brendan. Welcome back to session number 4, part 2, where we're going to be talking about my famous integrated product suite that will help you figure out more strategically how do you sell what you've got and plan for it, and then how do you ultimately scale all of that. That was a big question I've had, and I'm sure you've had it too before, right? Where you're like, what do I do first? Then what do I build? Then how do I help more people? And it's difficult because sometimes you're just wondering, like, which product first? So let's go back to some discussions we've had before in the past. I've shared with you, it doesn't matter where you start, just start something that matters. It doesn't matter which product you begin with, just begin with one. Don't get overwhelmed by thinking you have to be, on day one at anyone else's level, including my own. My job here is to kind of teach you how to approach all this. And I'm kind of teaching like the Cadillac model, like the big picture. Here's all the things you can do and think about all the strategies that have made me successful in trying to do this and others in the industry. But you just need to start somewhere. And it doesn't matter. If you're like, Brendan, should I start a blog or do webinars? I'm like, which one would you like better? Well, I like blogging, blog. Brendan, should I do a live event or should I do an audio program? Which would you like better? I like live events. Do the live event. It doesn't matter. Here's what you need to understand. In almost every entrepreneurial endeavor, just start. And you're going to learn what you like better. Don't do something because someone said it. Do it because you resonated with it and you say, I like that approach. So as complex as this integrated product suite model is going to be, product suite, as complex as this might sound, because I'm really going to give you, here's the big picture. This is a little bit more advanced if you don't have any products yet. But the goal is, and what I've always tried to do in serving my students and helping you guys has been very simple, and that is sort of living from a metaphor that we have in Montana, which says the time to have the map is before you enter the woods. I try to show you the end in mind, as Stephen Covey would say. Begin with the end in mind. Even if that's way too complex, way too scary, way too much, it's good to know where you're going, I bet if you're new to the industry that you've really enjoyed this thought leader roadmap. If you have, give me a shout out in the comments. This has been awesome teaching this, but I do know that it can be overwhelming with where to start. The answer is start. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter which product, doesn't matter how much you charge, just begin. Trust me. Everybody you talk to in our industry who's at a higher level right now, they'll tell you, Brendan, when I started, I was a hot mess, and that's okay. And when you begin this endeavor, what I want you to think about is this. All business basically has the same phases, if you will. And our business is no different. We're in the thought leader space. We're in what we call the experts industry. When you're an author, speaker, coach, seminar leader, online trainer, social media thought leader, or maven, you're in the area of selling and monetizing stories and content and training. When you're in the experts industry, what makes you successful is sticking at it, going at it. But what I don't want you to ever forget is you don't have to do a million things. It can be very, very simple. I know, as a quick aside, I know a guy who really inspired me to get in this industry he had 2 or 3 things he sold, and that was it. And he sold it for years and years and years really well. He wouldn't implement something I'm going to talk about here. He would consider it too much, too complicated. So you do it for whatever is appropriate to you. I'm going to show what I've done with the integrated product suite that helped me break through the big numbers in the industry. It was something to start from nothing to make a couple $100, a couple $1,000, tens of thousands, 100,000, million, couple million, 10 million. I couldn't hit the 10 million type numbers without the integrated product suite. It was central to my scale and growth. But please take it at your own pace. I'm trying to show you the bigger map of where you could go. I hope that helps. Okay, so let's draw this baby out. The integrated product suite. Grab your journals. Let's draw out a very cool model. I'm going to case study my business, or I should say pieces of my business, so that you can see how I think through. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3 building and scaling products and programs. I'm going to start very, very simple, and then we'll build it out. So here's what we do. We have these brands, and I always thought about what we were doing was building brands, and that was very different than the sort of the go-go crazy time of 2000, probably all the way to like 2009 and 10, maybe even about that first decade of the 2000s. Everybody was about get rich quick, make some money, get their credit card, charge them forever kind of nonsense that really blighted the industry. But also, a lot of that early training was instrumental in helping me know what I liked and what I didn't like, who I resonated with, who I didn't. I saw this as a career, an ability to build some brands, and I got really excited about it. And I would say it's one of the reasons we're here. And I think a lot of the industry has come along there and done a great job. And you have unbelievably smart, capable, caring, thoughtful people doing really, really great work. And now you see, gosh, this whole industry has just exploded with so many new people entering and doing a great job. I hope that you'll approach it from the same perspective. You are building a brand. It's not just your personal brand. You are also building product brands. Product brands. And I'll walk you through what that means if that sounds too complicated. I know some of you are here, they're like, dude, just tell me how to write and publish a book. But again, my job is to show you the ultimate roadmap. Where could you go with all this? Here's the way I thought through this, and it made all the difference in the world. I knew I was building product brands beyond just me, right? Just beyond the Brendan Burchard show. I wanted to build something that could last, that would be different than, here's Brendan's, so-and-so marketing training. So instead, I built, as an example, Experts Academy. Experts Academy. I know we have a lot of EA alumni. Big shout out to our EA alumni in here. When I started building Experts Academy, that's what EA stands for, that was just one product brand of what I do. That was going to be my marketing brand, Teach Marketing brand. I didn't want to call it, here's Brendan teaching marketing. I wanted to have a name for it like we talked about in the last session. So I called it Experts Academy. And I really learned that from all those who went before me. It seemed like the guys who had some kind of name for their company or some kind of name to what they were doing were more successful than just the average Joe trying to do this under their own name. And I also knew that companies, as they scale and sail, it's important to have something separate than the leader, than just me. I wanted something to exist beyond it. It led to a pretty, celebrated offer a couple years ago, which I did not take, a $20 million offer to buy the Experts Academy brand from me. I said no, but the reason they could do that or offer that was because EA, Experts Academy, is a curriculum. And see, when you build a curriculum or frameworks, people can buy that and teach it beyond you. A very famous example, to give you an idea, is Stephen Covey, who, his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he could license that out to other people and build an entire organization around it without him having to be the teacher. Because he didn't call it Stephen Covey Teaches Habits. He called it the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That was the brand that he built, that he licensed to all these trainers who could train all over the world, and built a multi-$100-million company doing that. Really powerful, right? Because he said, this is not called Stephen Covey's training. He said, this is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Covey Leadership. We can sell this. And so I was thinking about that. So I had some great role models there, including Stephen Covey, of how he thought through that, of Tony Robbins, how he thought about the Robbins Research Institute, even though it was just him in a tiny apartment, and broke and starting out. We all have our stories. I just thought if I could build a brand name, and now all over the world, a lot of people know Experts Academy. They've heard of, oh, you're going to Experts Academy? They don't know who I am. I walk out on stage all the time at Experts Academy, and there's plenty of people who don't know me other than somebody drug them there, and they see a banner with my face on it, and they see my brochure, but they don't know anything. They haven't watched any of my videos, but they've heard of Experts Academy. That was a goal for me, and I'm really proud of that. So I thought about it in terms of product brands. Another one many of you guys are really familiar with, as an example, would be High Performance Academy. This is my motivation brand. So I'll just write these down here. Motivation. This is kind of my marketing brand. And so I took whatever topic theme idea and I separated them out. I thought, okay, I'm going to have my marketing brand. It's going to be called Experts Academy. I'm going to have my motivation brand. It's going to be called High Performance Academy. And like I said earlier in another part of this training, I said don't go out and create tons of things. Create 3 things for each product brand. Does that make sense? Each product brand. And that's all you need to create. You don't need to create hundreds of things. Create 3 things for each of these, and then you'll see that they all kind of grow. Now, I'm going to walk you through what I mean by integrated product suite. I know lots of questions are coming up right now, but just stick with me. And as I fill this out, right now you're kind of like, okay, where's this going? Just stick with me. I know it might be new to you, and I'm using weird phrases, and you may or may not be familiar with all of what I do, but you'll get it. I'm using my examples because I know I have a lot of students here who will resonate. But watch how this works out. Remember I told you to create 3 different products for each product brand? Well, that's what I did with each of these, knowing that people would move through them to scale the business. And some of you might move through my products in Experts Academy and then come through High Performance Academy. And that is how the business started to scale a lot, because I had 2 different brands to offer that had multiple products under each. And let me use a big metaphor to explain what I'm talking about, and then I'll explain how my model built out and how you can build out your model too. I know many of you got to know some of my work in the business strategy space when I coined the phrase of Apple's strategy. And I was asked, Brendan, what do you think they're doing that's so different in marketing? And I didn't know it, so I made up this phrase like I always do. I make up a name. And I ultimately realized what they were doing. I just called it the integrated product suite. And now people talk about that all the time. And here's all it was. I looked at what they did, and I said, oh, they had a limited product suite, and every one of those products grew with the aspiration of the customer, and they escalated in price. So here's the examples. Do you have an iPod, or did you ever have an iPod? Do you have an iPhone? Do you have an iPad? Do you have a Mac? Do you have all of them? Well, a lot of people have all of them. And I was wondering, I was watching Apple's brand just explode, and I was like, what are they doing so uniquely? And what I realized was people had all of them. It's not like you went to Samsung and you were like, I want all of Samsung's products. You didn't do that. But you went to Apple and said, I want all of their products. I was like, why? And I started thinking about it, and obviously, I didn't invent the strategy. I'm the commentator. I was like, well, what they did is they integrated them. So you had your iPod, and they operated based on iTunes, and yet a couple years later, they dropped the iPhone, and it was integrated in that it's integrated with the same ambition of the customer, the same aspiration. Steve Jobs said, he really wanted to create the hub of a person's life. Well, it's like, okay, there's their music, and now there's their phone. This is more expensive than that one, but they're very similar. Now, matter of fact, very few people really feel like they need an iPod because their phone serves both uses. But at the time, it was like, this one's this price, this one's more expensive. Then they came out with what? The iPad. That was more expensive, right? That cost a little bit more. Then the new Macs, that cost more. Then the towers, that cost more. And lots of people had all of them, and they all worked together in sync because they were all connected by iTunes. So it was a product suite that escalated in price and served a higher and higher ambition or aspiration of the customer. The aspiration of someone buying a MacBook is different than the aspiration of someone buying a phone. They want to do more complex things, don't they? So you grow in price point the more complex things people learn, but you unite them in some way. Those Apple products are united in design aesthetic, and they're united by iTunes. And they're united by, I would say, the ethos of Apple. So it's really the brand that unites them, the system, iTunes, as an example, and the price points become more and more escalating along the way. So I was looking at that, and it helped me start thinking about this thing. I coined that the integrated product suite, and then I said, well, how can I do it for my own brand? And I realized that's what I had to do for each of these brands. So Experts Academy, I thought, I need my version of the iPod for the Experts Academy, a price point that's inexpensive that many people can access. But then I want them also, in my world, I want them to spend more to grow in their capabilities. I want them to also be able to get an iPhone or an iPad. And then I thought, well, you know what I also want is I want them to be able to get the best thing. I want them to be able to have a Mac or a tower, greater complexity. So I thought, well, all they're doing is escalating in price point and the growth capability or complication of what they have to offer. And this is where I came with this idea of, well, what if I just created low tier, mid tier, and high tier price points for each of my products? I hope you're keeping up. I know it's very simple, right? But watch how profound this gets as we build. So here's what ended up happening. I said, well, I just need to create something that everybody could get for Experts Academy so that people can understand marketing. Because previously, all I ever had for Experts Academy was I had this, it began with a seminar. I'll just put it here. But just the seminar for Experts Academy was like, when I started, it was like $5,000, and then it dropped down to $2,000 just to attend the seminar. But that's all I had. I was like, well, I'm teaching the most advanced stuff, and I'd come a little bit further than some other people in the industry that they were teaching, and I thought, well, if I have more fans, followers, and ability to grow this, I should teach at a more advanced level. And by the way, that's a great thing for you to do. How can you teach a little bit more advanced than other folks? By naming your things, creating great frameworks, doing great content creation like we've talked about. Because your premium students will always be those who implement the most, right? So, but that's all I had. So think about my business. If that's all I had, I could only scale the business based on how many people bought this one product. That's the challenge for most thought leaders. Think about yourself. How many products do you have? You know, if you're new, you probably don't have any products, so create a product. But if you really want to scale, you need a new product. But what do you create, right? That's the challenge. Do I create another $2,000 seminar? That's what everyone's telling me. Brendan, just create Experts Academy Part 2. You know, charge some more money, just create another seminar. Everybody told me to do that. But I kept thinking about it. I was like, well, I'm only accessing one part of the marketplace at this. You know, that would be the equivalent of Apple just selling MacBook Pros. Their business would not be evaluated the way it is if they only had that one expensive product. So I said, nope. Even though it's good advice, Brendan, create another seminar. I said, no. I sound like I'm talking to a child or a cat. No, don't go in there. Instead, I said, no, let me think about this integrated product suite. What would be an offer over here that could get more people? Well, it would have to be less expensive, wouldn't it? So I thought, well, what could that be? So I thought and I thought and I thought, and then what I ended up doing was releasing the Millionaire Messenger, which was a book that people could buy for $19, right? $19. Well, here's the cool thing, because I only ever had a $2,000 program on this. When I launched the Millionaire Messenger, my audience went crazy. They were like, I can get Brendan's learning this for $20? And the industry really didn't have a book at that time in this space that was a big seller. And so I said, I'm going to do that. So we dropped the Millionaire Messenger, and thank you guys for helping support that and make that happen. That hit #1 New York Times, #1 USA Today, #1 Wall Street Journal, blew it out of the water, blew everyone's mind, especially for a book on marketing for the thought leadership industry. It exploded. I mean, absolutely exploded. Brought so many more people into this world by having a lower price point. This is making sense, right? And so once you have this, now guess what? Once they have the iPod, they want their iPad, right? So I thought, well, what else could I offer at a mid-tier price point? And I came up with a 6-disc audio. And then I thought, well, what could I add over here that would be even more expensive? And I didn't know what that was. So I didn't get in a hurry, and I just did this for a really long time. That was all I did. That was it. I just did these things. It worked really great. And then ultimately, I realized that people wanted a mastermind experience and coaching. Now, a couple things about this. You'll see this kind of plays to my strengths personally. I'm a writer, first and foremost. Then I'm a speaker. And so those things were easily to activate. I wasn't doing really anything else of that. Just those three built a multi-million-dollar huge brand that later had a $20 million buyout offer. And this is all I had. That was it. 3 levels of offering, that was it. So what I want you to get excited about is you don't have to create a million things. You need to create 1, 2, or 3 things, market them really well, and change the escalation point so it gets more expensive and they get more growth capability. So you're teaching more complex, more advanced, the more you charge. Now, I know you know this, so here's the question. What does your integrated product suite look like? Do you have a low tier, low priced, mid tier, mid priced, and high tier, high priced product yet? If you don't, now you know what you're going to go build, right? You don't have to build a million little, a lot of people, here's what they do. They build 50 of these and they're broke. They don't hit their financial numbers and their audience bails on them. There's a lot of good thought leaders. Their audience left because they never had an advancement path. Now, if we combine the training of yesterday with today, all we're doing is we're escalating their ability to achieve their goals. So remember their ambition line? We're just serving, we're going higher and higher levels of skill. We're giving more skill set training, and we're giving a little bit more access to you, the person, to me. So these people get me to experience me live and shake my hand maybe, but these folks were small group folks that we worked with from between, when we first began, it was like $10,000. Then we went up to $50,000, and then I stopped these groups because I started doing more private work one-on-one. So that was the sort of the escalation of Experts Academy. Now, I started thinking, okay, do these folks also need to become high performers? And so I started thinking about, well, what would the messaging be to get somebody who bought this to think about their performance, to become better people, better at what they do in whatever they're doing. And so they could come down here. And so High Performance Academy grew. First, again, I just replicated. It worked for me. So I said, okay, I'm going to start with a seminar. Because seminar people wanted more training, so I started with a $1,000 seminar, which is very expensive. Again, and I'll talk tomorrow about marketing premium products and how that works. So I started with a seminar. That worked out pretty good. I came out with a book. That book was The Charge. That was New York Times, USA Today, Wall Street Journal bestseller, crushing it. Came out with that 6-disc program. This one was DVD. And then what I did, this was a huge point of change for me, and I'll share with you. I was getting tired because what I did is I thought I had to replicate this exactly, and I had another mastermind and coaching program basically for this. And then I realized, why does it have to be 2 different things? Mastermind and coaching, they just want to advance their life and their business, whatever it is, and I combine the 2. So now, no matter where they came into, they went into the same group. Does that make sense? Instead of creating a whole bunch of new things, I said, it can be the same group. So all these folks came just into one mastermind. Okay. That's a brief sort of history of my own product development and how I thought through it. For you, that's my question for you here. What's yours going to be? What's your lower priced, what's the mid-priced, and the high priced? Remember, it doesn't have to be a book. You could do a PDF, a download. You could do a webinar series that's only $50. Usually this price point, a low tier, as we call it, a low tier price point is anywhere from $1 all the way up to, let's say, $97. A mid tier in our industry tends to be from $97 all the way up to $499. $97. And a high tier is anything above that, $497 plus. It depends on the industry for that, for the record. Like the health space, that's probably their price points. The real estate space would be completely different. It's a different topic. There's investment and money involved in there. So their mid-tier would probably go all the way up to $900 to $1,000, and this would be $1,000 and above. Very different for everyone brands, but the main thing is low, mid, high. Then you create communication and marketing that if you have two of these, you bring them into this one as well. Well, if you know my brand, you know I've got all these other ones. I've got World's Greatest Speaker Training. I've got Total Product Blueprint. I've got the brands of my online courses. And I'm just continually building out this integrated product suite. And the way I scaled my business was so many people would go through many of them. I know we've got a lot of HPA members or Experts Academy folks, alumni here, who you've been in both. If you've been in both, put it down in the comments below. I'll look you up, and I'm going to send you something very, very nice, a handwritten note and book I'd love to send you. So anyone who's been in HPA and EA, give me a shout out, and I'll check it out in the comments down below later. But this is how I scaled, and I want you to think about this. It's integrated. Let me share with you again. What does that mean? Integrated product suite. You are creating your products. You're creating your products based on an escalation model, and that escalation is based on two things. The capabilities of what you're teaching and the price. So it goes from less expensive to more expensive, as we discussed yesterday. And so again, it comes down to you asking, what are the capabilities that my customers would need? At the beginning, beginner. Up here, advanced. You charge more. But here's my challenge to you, and the distinction that makes all the difference in the world. I'm telling you, and I will share with it 1,000,000 times over, don't create more than just 1, 2, and 3. 3 things. This is product number 1, product number 2, product number 3, and this could be your multi-million-dollar empire. If you don't believe it, look at so many people in our industry who pulled it off. Look at Jeff Walker is a really great example. Jeff Walker, for the longest time, he's the creator of the product launch formula. And Jeff is a dear, dear friend, a great, great mentor, somebody who I think is one of the great role models of the internet marketing space that has ever been. Extremely amazing human being. I bet we have a lot of PLF owners right here. I bought Product Launch Formula at the beginning, well, not the beginning, but yeah, the beginning of my joint venture career was really 2009. And I bought Product Launch Formula. Taught me a lot of this stuff. And Jeff, for the longest time, he just had Product Launch Formula. It was $2,000. He was really kind of right here. And everybody wanted more from him. And he knew it. He heard it all the time. And his brand was at one level. And it was unbelievable, and everybody learned from it. It was great. But that's all he had, really, that. He had that one course that he'd sell each year. It had a bunch of different bonuses each year, but it was always PLF. That's all you could get. And it was like he wanted more. And so his brand, his scale went like this. When he activated an integrated product suite, he dropped in his book, Launch, which I loved, and we supported in his promotion of it. And then he dropped in his masterminds and coaching groups. And now that business went wham. But he basically has one thing, product launch formula. He basically has 3 levels. And with those 3 levels has built an extremely successful, profitable company. You'll see it over and over and over again. Let me ask you this. For those who just don't understand what I'm talking about, and you think that everybody, to make all this money, they must have hundreds and hundreds of products and programs. Let's look at another great leader in our industry, Tony Robbins. Great friend, great mentor, amazing guy, one of the great role models in our industry's history. Love the guy. Tony, who is, I mean, really the best in the world at what he does, bar none, how many products does he have? I mean, he's been doing this 30 years. Does he have 100 products? Does he have 50? Does he have 10? Well, if you're a longtime fan of Tony's, you realize you can kind of go to Unleash the Power Within. You can go to Date with Destiny. You can go to Wealth Mastery, Life Mastery. He's got 4 or 5 products that he sells separate from that online, or so that you could buy in terms of DVDs or CDs. He's got 10, 15 major products, maybe, in 30 years. 30 years of serving people and changing the world. So served over 50 million people, so he says, and on his websites and stuff like that. Like, that's pretty amazing, right? 4 million people live have attended his events. He didn't create 50 events. He had like 4. And he just ran that route. It's just like when you got a winning combination, he didn't build this out and try to do that. And that's why he's still here, because it becomes manageable and it becomes something that you can scale generation after generation. I know people who've sent their kids to his programs and their parents went to it. He scaled by creating just some blockbuster products. And that's what I try to do and try to teach you. Don't think about creating lots of little chintzy, crappy things. Create 1, 2, or 3 amazing things that you keep marketing over and over and over again, and you will see that the business scales. If you can find something else that integrates with that ambition, then it grows as well. Let me give you one more example to end. Experts Academy was crushing, doing really great. But one of the capabilities that people kept asking with that program, the skill sets, if you will, that people kept asking for me was like, well, I'm not a good speaker. I want to speak better. People told me for years and years that I should do a speaking program. I didn't want to. And then I met Roger Love, the world's #1 vocal coach, and I met Bo Eason, the world's #1 movement, story, physicality coach, and brought them on, and we started teaching this program. Well, that took the business to another level because a lot of the people who wanted marketing training, like how to monetize it, they also wanted the skill, the capability of speaking. So I started that specifically to build that piece out for their skill and their capability. I hope this all makes sense. This is what's called the integrated product suite. If you ever struggled to figure out, like, what's the integrated product suite? Think of Apple. Less price, united by company theme or aura, if you will, the brand, united by a system. All my courses have always lived in the same system, so I could upsell in that system. I could track and manage those systems, right? That made it easier to scale and easier for people to purchase. And then it grows by capability. What does the student or the customer get? How do they grow? And then ultimately it scales by price. It just gets more expensive. So as you begin, your question will always be this. I get it all the time. Well, Brendan, where do I start? Low tier, mid tier, high tier? Doesn't matter. I have friends who started a mastermind. I have friends who started coaching. That was their first thing. Man, they were making money because it's expensive and it's highly profitable. They just learned how to do that marketing. They got 5, 10, 20, 100 people in their mastermind and just exploded. And then they thought, I'd better go do a book to get more people to come in who might be interested in this. I've got other fans, friends, students. They wrote their book first. And they had a great success with their book. But then they realized that their students wanted more continuing education. So they rolled out something mid-tier, maybe a 6-disc audio program or MP3 download, etc. So all these things are just to say, this is how you strategically think through this. My intention for you is this. If you're going to create something, do it with excellence, period. Don't get caught up into what a lot of the beginner online marketing trainers teach. They just say, well, create something and sell it. Give me crappy little this, crappy little that. Just get some money coming in. You know what the difference between a good product and a great product is? Usually about 4 weeks more of work. That's all. 4 more weeks, making it a little more excellent, revisiting it, adding to it, creating some downloads for it or worksheets to it. Look, the difference between those who create crappy stuff and those who create excellent stuff, outside of their experience or their research, comes down to the implementation. When this implementation, you're talking 4 more weeks of work. If it's only 4 more weeks of work, do it with excellence. That's how you'll be here. Regardless of your integrated product suite, the way that you're going to be here is you're going to say, I'm going to create great stuff. I've created products and programs that sold for 5, 6 years. I never had to touch them ever again because when I created them the first time, I said, let's go at it. Let's do this with excellence. It only takes a month longer to be great. So please give yourself that intention. Don't be that person like, oh, well, I studied this online marketer and they said I should just, write a crappy little book, just have someone interview me and transcribe me, and then I print the transcription and fool people into thinking it's a book. It's like, maybe they'll buy that book, but if it's not good, they won't keep buying it, they won't keep sharing it. And you went through that effort, the same amount of effort, to do something good, a couple more weeks of work. So give yourself the time. I know everyone wants to get in the game very fast, and it's very attractive to just slap something together and get going. And I say, you can get going, but you don't have to just slap crap together. Spend a little bit more time. If you can think about what you're doing as building a brand, and think about your products as being brands themselves, and you're willing to spend 4 more weeks, create it, yes, still get it together. Still give yourself the same thing. Deadline, get in the game, create it fast, go through the process, yes. Then I'm just asking, give yourself 4 more weeks to tweak it and make it awesome. You will find that you start to have blockbuster products and programs that sell year after year, get you student after student after student who love you, who appreciate you, who look up to you, and you will start to see you built something real. I never imagined when I had one little bucket that it would grow into this growing thing. Last point of this, I didn't grow that fast. People think I grew that fast. Financially, I made a lot of money very, very, very quickly because of what I'll share with you tomorrow when we talk about the marketing strategies. But the growth of the business was very slow and judicious. In general, in all of my time, if you look back to when I really began, I tend to create 1 new product per year. That was my average. 1 new course per year, or 1 new book per year, 1 new service per year, but it was always 1. That's all. I'd create 1 new thing, and then I'd market it all year long until I got it and it was good, and I put it on Evergreen, as we talked about yesterday, just kept marketing it out there. And then the next year, I'd build something new. That went on for 6, 7 years. And then 1 year, I decided to go for it. I created like 4 new things. But by then, I'd built up the lifestyle and the team to support me to be able to do that. So all I'm suggesting, just get in the game, create something this year, okay? Write that book, do that audio program, start the webinar series, create the online course, do the coaching, whatever it has, get in the game, do it well, set it up so that marketing and the money is going and going, coming in, coming in, coming in, coming in, and then think about what's going to go in the next part of my integrated product suite. Do that well, your brand will grow, you'll be on the path to your thought leader roadmap. Hope you served you well. In the next session, I'll be doing some Q&A. Thanks everybody for your time and your attention.